Alright, so we are checking out a Plat Zarya on Nepal. Oh, and this Zarya did specifically ask for help with target prioritization, so it's definitely something I'm going to look at here to see what's going on, what's wrong. Okay, so we can start with the obvious, okay? So, and sometimes there is more appropriate ways to play Zarya, but watch this from the start here, and it's kind of clear that you play Zarya more so as a DPS, which makes sense, but in a stall situation or in a hold situation like this, where your team is trying to hold this choke, that's where your Rhine has decided to set up, you should be pretty close to your Rhine and you should be playing like a tank with him. Because then what that allows you to do is that allows you to like step in front of him, bubble yourself, and that gives your healers a solid couple seconds to where they can just heal your Rhine. He doesn't have to burn his shield. You can block things like a shatter from him, you can block things like a headshot from him, and it's fantastic. But instead, because we're back here and because we kind of rotate around this pole, we don't get to help our Rhine like we would like to. And that Ryan is kind of expecting us to be up front, and that's why he's still frontlining. You see, this Zarya actually does it fairly well. Check that out. There's the Ryan fighting frontline. Their Ryan probably gets low, needs heals or something like that. And there's the Zarya coming up right away there. There she is, bubbling herself so that now no one can hit their Ryan. He's totally safe. But instead, here you are on this flank. Here your Ryan is getting taken down. Their Ryan is getting healed up. He's almost full now. And so you're losing this tank battle based off the fact that you didn't play Zarya like a tank. And this style is more okay once you get like 100 charge, you don't have as many bubbles and stuff because you can really farm in the back and your Rhyme won't be taking as much damage. But when you're at 0 charge, 40, 70 even, this is not an okay style to play. Okay, so you guys are up 1, up 2, so you are probably going to win this fight, but there was no reason that your Ryan had to die there. Ana, I don't think you were going to save her. Whatever happened to Ana, that's not on you. It can be nice to bubble your supports, it can be nice to try and peel for your supports, but it's just not necessarily Zarya's job. There's usually higher value stuff that you could be doing. See how far away we're playing from the front line still? So we can't really use our personal bubble to get charge, and we can't see the whole battlefield. So we don't know if something really bad is about to happen to our Rhine. And so if we bubble him here, we're essentially guessing. There you go. Super unfortunate. If we would have been playing more forward from the start, we might have been able to block that though. Because instead we kind of got caught in rotation.
I am not a good loser.
Nice, both of those ended up being solid bubbles. Okay, so the one thing to kind of think about here is that we get into this fight, and I'm not even going to say whether or not we should have gone into this fight, whether or not there was somewhere better we could go, but where we mess up is the fact that, we don't really need a map for this actually, where we mess up is the fact that we don't go behind this pillar or further back. So we know that our Mercy is right here, and so we can also see there's a McCree and a Zarya. So those are really our threats. Zarya actually less so, because there's a good chance that we're going to win this duel. We're higher charged than her. So here's what happens. You kill the Zarya finally in this fight, which is nice, clean, but the McCree can still see you so easily. And the McCree should farm you. Like, that should be simple for a McCree to do when you have already had to use your bubbles in another fight and stuff. And so you see you're going towards this pole. You need to duck behind this pole here, because now we can see that our Mercy has died, so we know that McCree is going to be focusing on us next. And that's going to be kind of an advantage of watching the kill feed and watching those respawn bubbles. But because we're not paying attention to that, our Bastion actually kind of saves us from this Zarya, but the McCree can still easily farm us.
One front gate.
I will never
Lock it
surrender.
off.
Wherever that tracer is, I could use some help shutting her down. There she is, top right.
Group up with me.
Yep, Ryan shield, I can hammer on him.
Okay, so your Rhine is planning to hammer. So you should be playing up by your Rhine. You should be bubbling your Rhine when he tries to hammer, and you guys should be having a good time together. Instead, you were late, and then unfortunately, that Ryan played that pretty well. But if you weren't late, if you were right next to your Ryan that whole time from the second he shattered, I bet you it would have been a better time.
Now see
Tracer
what I can
literally
do.
is just harassing the shit out of me at Mercy.
You go Diva if someone else wants to take it.
And you've heard that too now. So if you think that's the issue why you guys are losing, like, Diva Ryan is a comp that you can play if he doesn't know how to play like a Winston or something, because he can play a little bit more passively. You can even, like I said, there is better stuff you can do with Zarya, but you can even play around your supports a little bit more, but you do need to kind of decide on how you're going to deal with that, because I think that he's correct.
You'd
Just
like
like
to
in
switch
training.
McCree yourself. Or whatever you're comfortable with.
I also think that we have to use our grab and charge it a little bit faster if we can. That Zarya's grabbed us twice now, and it's probably 25%-ish to another grab, and we haven't even used ours once yet, as far as I know, unless I'm remembering wrong.
Wiek żywi, wiek uczy.
Tracer come back to point.
Super unlucky. So we had a rough time here, and so if we really want to break down what gave us a rough time on Zarya, has nothing to do with our team, has nothing to do with anything. It's that we weren't playing Zarya like a tank, but we weren't high enough charge to play her like a DPS.
Yeah, sorry, I kept getting killed by the I kept getting pinned by the Ryan.
And then, so that is what was like the foundation of your issue. Because you weren't playing her like a tank, from there, your bubbles weren't getting you the charge you needed, or like getting like life-saving plays. But then also, your Ryan would go down because he didn't have that support, and so then you didn't get the time to farm your grab. So you had a really rough time there. And it was mostly because you weren't playing as a tank. So this can be a difficult map to play Ryan Zarya on, but the solution here is hug that right corner of the point, play by your Ryan.
They're going behind us.
Okay, so we've left to go fight a Ryan when we have 0 charge. We're going to get pinned and we're going to die. There's no other possible way that should have gone. Thankfully, you were saved by that armor pack from your brig, but that is what should have happened there, because we went to go fight Orion with 0 charge. Fighting Orion with 50-60 charge can be difficult because he has a really high health bar and he has a charge, like you saw.
Must have been really weak.
Okay, so right there, I don't totally understand the bubble choice because your Lucio was going to die, and your Ryan, even if he took some damage, probably was not going to die. And so just think about kind of your bubble usage there. Because that Ryan was actively swinging on your Lucio, you know for a fact that you're going to get some charge and probably save him. And so you took the choice to bubble your Ryan, but your Ryan wasn't in that immediate danger that your Lucio was. Nice. Okay. So we know that Widow is shooting us from the left side, so let's try not to go out in the open like by point anymore. I'm assuming you meant to bubble your Brig there. Not gonna hold that against you. Would have been nice if we could have bubbled the Brig there, if you weren't meaning to.
Hold on, we got it, guys. 77%. It's working.
Okay. So this round, we have to stay by our other tank, and we have to use our bubbles when our tank or us are taking damage so that we can get charge. There's like a separate thinking of bubbles that comes kind of later, comes kind of as you're climbing, and it's starting to use your bubbles to block specific abilities, starting to use your bubbles to enable certain plays, like blocking your Ryan when he tries to shatter and stuff. But currently, like, your bubbles have a foundational issue where you never ever ever have charge. That is so difficult. I don't think at any point this round you were above like 50 charge, which is handicapping you on Zarya. And so it's not, I'm not saying that it's even like your fault, but that that just makes it super difficult. I mean, almost impossible to do what you need. So how you fix that is you stay by your Rhine, you play aggressive. You almost play your Zarya in more of a Rhine style, where you're kind of frontlining, you're enjoying being a tank instead of a DPS, and you will start having a lot better time because you will have a lot more charge, and then you can start to kind of look at, you know, getting more advanced with your bubbles, protecting your allies, when it's okay to break off from your team. But like right now, like, what did we bubble our Rhine against? It's just Hammond and Brig that can even see your Rhine. Brig does not have range, so she is not going to hurt your Rhine. Hammond does no damage when he's just rolling around. It's 50 damage, so he's not any sort of threat to your Rhine. So we gotta think about when we're using our bubbles, because now we have a crazy long cooldown and 0 charge. Your Rhine could have used a bubble when he was actually being like swung on and shot on by that Reaper and Brig. Nice. It's always a good plan to bubble your Rhine when he gets slept to make sure he doesn't get anti-ed or something. Once you start to get even like more advanced with it, you can actually kind of watch the Ana to see if she's going to be doing something to your Rhine. But that's awesome and definitely what I would expect and want to see here. So now that we finally have charge for the first time this whole game, we can actually focus on our target prioritization. So one thing that you could do is you can help your Rhine burn their tanks. And that's usually the most common thing you'll be shooting as Zarya, because you can melt that Hammond. From there, great target is going to be the Brig, because she's probably going to be frontlining, and if you right click around her feet, or even if you just left click her shield, like, you can melt the Brig. Then as Zarya, you'll start to clean up like Genji and stuff. Instead, you were targeting Genji as one of your first. And there is some DPS that you can target really well. Like a Reaper has to walk close and generally has to walk pretty straight to hit his shots, so that can be a great DPS for you to melt, but not great is going to be like a Genji usually.
Reaper.
See what you're doing to that Hammond? I mean, it's crazy. The more charge you have too, like if you were higher charge right there, you would have burned him.
Wait, do we have that? Yeah, we have it. Shit.
So, our Ryan and I kind of got a little split, so we were already having a rough time. And then
Or dragon.
they threw ults once our Ryan and I were split. So that's what happened to you there. And
I am
Waste it.
not a good loser.
really the easiest way to fix that is making sure that you're by your Ryan. But, you know, some fights you do have to lose too.
Genji on me on
It's
the
just you
right.
probably could have done more.
Reaper and Genji both flank.
Get in there.
It's unfortunate. Reaper and Genji flanked and just never, ever, ever got addressed. And so you call it out in the chat, but call it out more and say something like punish them for flanking us.
Makes perfect.
Let's go. I'll rush
Because
it.
you guys could have turned around and melted them. Reaper used his Wraith to try and chase you, so he didn't even have that cooldown.
Nice. Get the point. That's most important. Alright.
Still Amos in the back. Amos one in the back. He's on the left side now.
So this is honestly just kind of more of the same, where we're struggling to get that charge, and so we need to get that charge up because that's the only way we're going to be able to hold. Even if you're taking like a more aggressive position with your Ryan here or something, but the fact that like you're in the back bubbling your low Hanzo when he's not taking any damage like is going to get you so screwed here.
Kill Reaper. Go.
You weren't in any immediate damage when you bubbled yourself. And then we didn't bubble our Ryan when he was in immediate damage. I know that you were worried about target prioritization, but here's the thing about Zarya. Good bubbles and good positioning make Zarya a fantastic tank that has crazy high damage. Bad bubbles and bad positioning make Zarya a glorified DPS who sucks. And so what is happening right now is you have bad bubbles and bad positioning that is making it really hard to succeed on Zarya, totally outside of anything else. You can't have target prioritization when you're not even doing damage. Like when you're shooting someone on 0 energy, it sucks. Your bubbles on Zarya are your bread and butter. Using them to block cooldowns, using them to get charge, using them to save your own life. Like, Zarya would probably be a good hero still if all she had were bubbles. Top tier Zaryas would still do good because your bubbles are fantastic and they allow you to really just open the game up. When a Zarya is at 100 charge from her bubbles and has 2 bubbles on cooldown, that is the scary, or 2 bubbles off cooldown, so realistically you'd be at like 90 charge or whatever. That is the scariest thing in the game, because what that means is that there is a crazy high damage DPS coming at you, who if they play well are also a tank, and you can't even like one-shot them or kill them or anything because they're just going to bubble themselves. And then once they bubble themselves, they're probably just going to bubble the support or the Rhine that's pocketing them. And so you have to start at the foundation of your Zarya, and you have to look into those bubbles. You have to see when damage is coming on your Rhine. You have to keep your team in a kind of formation that they can be bubbled, and you have to play yourself in a position where your bubbles are going to get you charged. Right now your bubbles are very reactive. You're bubbling when you're taking damage. You're not bubbling to get charge, and you're not bubbling to get charge like early in the fight or out of the fight at all, which is especially unfortunate. Less so against like this comp, because this comp can be more difficult to get charge on Zarya, but not difficult at all against like some of the first comps that you were playing against, where it was like a Rein right in front of you and a Rein Zarya, and that Zarya, if you saw how she was playing, was doing it so much better because she was playing like her Rein and playing like a tank, where she was soaking up damage for her tank, which was also then giving her charge. So you have to start with that foundation and then get another VOD done. Then get a VOD done to see, you know, how you're going to target call, how you're going to prioritize targets, how you're going to communicate. But if you don't fix your bubbles, then you're not going to succeed. That has to be your first. And I always try and give 3 things to improve on. That's all I'm giving right now. Also hit tab more. Little side note. That's all I'm giving right now, because that will improve you 100 times over.